Hey everyone, in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to, using Blender's game engine, UV map a plane. So UV mapping, if you don't know, is basically how you apply an image or a texture to one of your 3D objects or a 2D object like a plane. So let's get started. So I'm in Blender 2.79. This is the last version that has the Blender game engine. I'm going to turn on the Blender game engine by clicking up here and making sure it says Blender game. And then over here on the right hand side, I'm going to click on the little camera render panel and I'm going to scroll down, and where it says shading, I'm going to make sure it says GLSL, and that's going to allow me to see all the really nice graphics. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and delete my cube by pressing X. I'll then press Shift A and add in a mesh plane. I'll then go ahead and I'll zoom in on the plane just so you can see it. Okay, so now I need to set up my workspace so I can do UV mapping. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split this 3D window by coming up here to these three little diagonal lines. I'm going to hold down the left mouse button and drag to the left, and so I get a second window. I'm then going to come down here to the bottom of that second window, and I'm going to click on this little button here that has a cube and double arrows, and I'm going to change this window into a UV image editor. Here we go, and there it is right there. And so I'll zoom in and out with my scroll wheel. So if you're brand new to UV mapping, you should be able to follow along with this video. Hopefully you have some Blender experience. So essentially, this is your work table. This is kind of your desk where you're going to do all of the work. All right, so now I'm going to come back over here to my 3D view, and I need to unwrap this. And so the way you do that is you press Tab and you enter Edit Mode. You then need to make sure that the entire object is selected, okay, and it is selected by default. And then you're going to press U for Unwrap. And the only two that I think beginners should really pay attention to of all of these choices is Unwrap and Smart UV Project. Since this object is so simple, it's a plane, we're just going to choose Unwrap. And then when you do that, you'll see that it gets unwrapped and gets laid down flat here. Now that's not very impressive because it's just a plane, you're just seeing it over here, but that's where it is. With a more complex object like a cube, you'll have more to look at, and that might make a little more sense. All right, so now that we have our object unwrapped, you always want to look at your UV unwrapping over here, and you want your UV to look as much like your object as possible. And in this case, it's super simple because they're the exact same. It's such a simple unwrapping. We're good to go. All right, so now to be able to apply a texture, we're going to come over here and we're going to click on the Materials panel. Looks a little bit like a beach ball. We're going to click on New to make a new material, and we're going to go ahead and click right here where it says Material.001, and I'll just go ahead and I'll call this, I'm going to make this a brick wall. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this brick wall and press Return. Okay, so now that I have a material applied, you can ignore the diffuse color right here because we're going to cover that up with an image of a brick wall anyway. So to apply the texture, you simply come here and click on this red and white checkerboard pattern, and these are the textures. You'll see that you have a whole bunch of different empty sort of slots here. We're going to make sure we're on the top one, and we're going to click New. It gives us a blank texture, and we're going to go ahead and name that texture. I'm going to call it Brick Wall Text. Okay, short for brick wall texture, of course. And for the type, it should say image or movie. If it says anything else, any of these other choices here, make sure you choose image or movie. Okay, then you're going to scroll down until you see right here where it says image. When it says image, you have two choices, new or open. We're going to click on open. And now Blender's asking you where's the image located. So I know mine's on the desktop. And this is where you'll see it right here. Now, if you don't like looking at this, this is my texture right here, brick wall here. There's a little button up here in Blender, these four little squares, and if you click on that, that's really nice, especially when you're looking for textures that you can get a little thumbnail preview. So I do that often. All right, so I'm going to click on my brick wall, and I can just click on Open Image, and then there we go. You see a little preview here. Your preview is always going to tile and repeat itself, so just know that that's okay. All right, the last thing we need to do while we're here is just scroll down and go to a category here called mapping. And under mapping, just make sure that it says coordinates, and make sure those coordinates do say UV. Okay, they should say that automatically, but you just want to double check that. Okay, so now it should be applied. Everything is all set up, but why don't we see it? Well, come back over here to your 3D window, and if you press the letter Z, you basically want to choose material. And this is then going to allow you to then see the actual material object. And you can see it. The reason why it's all blue like this is because I have it selected. If I press A and deselect all, you'll see that I can actually see it in my window over here. So that's pretty cool. But you'll also see that it disappears over here. And the reason why it disappears in the UV image editor is because I have nothing selected over here in my 3D view. If I press A again over here in the 3D view, you'll see that my UV unwrapping shows up over here. I can also press Tab and go back into object mode, in which case there it is there. Now if you're looking at it here in the 3D view, this wall should really probably be more of a rectangle instead of a square. So I'm going to go ahead and tab back into edit mode, and I'm going to press numpad 7, and I'm going to go ahead and you know what, I'm going to leave it as a square just for now, just so you can see this next step, and then we'll change it to a rectangle. Alright, so I'm going to come over here to the UV window, and I want to see the brick image show up here in the UV editor. So I'm going to come down here, and at the very bottom middle you're going to see a button that says Open, New, and then you got this little teeny tiny button here on the left hand side that says Browse Image to be Linked. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to choose my brick texture that I've already loaded up. And Blender always zooms in. I'm not sure why. So just scroll out, and there you will see that what you have is you have a rectangular image that's being applied and squished into a square plane. Okay? So watch the left-hand view here very carefully. If I right mouse click and I select one of these UVs, and then I press G to grab it, you'll see that I can move it all around here. So over on the left-hand side, you'll see that it's getting distorted, right? If I rotate that around, you can see that it's getting all distorted. And that's because whatever these 4 UVs are covering, that's what will show up over here, okay? So let's say I don't want to see the window, okay? I can simply select this UV and put it right over here. And then I can select this UV and put it right over here like that. And essentially, you will see that there's no window showing up over here. I just get the graffiti and the rest of the brick wall. So that's kind of cool. So you can actually use the UVs to choose what you want to see. Okay? I can select multiple UVs by shift right clicking and select both UVs. And it's the same way as when you're modeling. I can then press G and grab, and I can move both at the same time, and you'll see the texture's changing size as we move it around. And then I just left click, and there we go. So now the bricks are looking a little bit better. They're not quite so stretched or anything like that. Okay? So you can really control the texture by controlling the UVs. That's the whole purpose of doing this. Okay? All right, so now what I want to do before I finish up on this video is I want to get this object to be a full-on rectangle and be able to show the entire texture over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and shift right click and select these 2 verts here. I'm going to press numpad 7 so I can get in the top view. And I'm just going to click and drag and stretch it on out. I'm going to eyeball it right around there. Now you'll notice that when I first do that, the UVs get stretched out. Okay, so if I show it again, you'll see that, again, it doesn't look so great. So I'm going to grab these 2 UVs. I'm just going to grab them and move them back over here. Okay, and remember, you can click on individual UVs and just reposition them. And there we go. It's looking better now. So now if I tab back into object mode, I can actually flip this up. So I'll just rotate it, not flip it. So I'll do R for rotate, X for the X-axis, and I'll rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, there we go. So there's my wall. Let me bring my lamp down here a little bit. And there we go. And I can bring it over here on this side. There we go. Okay, so now you can see it a little bit better. You can see I get to see the whole texture now. Let me bring this up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. And there we go. And that's looking pretty good. Now you notice that I'm getting a heavy shine on here. What that is that's called specularity. So the way you get rid of that, because it looks too fancy and clean, is you come back over here and you go to the material panel. That's the one that looks like a beach ball. And you scroll down until you find specular. And just bring the intensity all the way down to 0. And then basically this brick wall that's all old, which should not have any shine on it, has no shine. And you can see that shine is gone. Okay, and that is it. Congratulations, you have UV mapped your very first object. It's a plane, but this could absolutely work as a one wall to a building. Good luck, and I hope this helped you out with the process of UV mapping.